So, what are some practical things that we can do to keep making progress after a weekend blowout? What's going on YouTube, it's Jason, and in this video we are going to be discussing weekend weight gain, and particularly weekend weight gain on a fat loss phase. Now, there is nothing more frustrating than being good all week, letting your hair down a little bit on the weekend, weighing yourself Monday morning and seeing you've gained back all the weight and more. What I'm going to do is go through exactly why that happens, some common mistakes to avoid, and what you can do to ensure that you continue making progress with weight loss. So, what happens when we have a weekend blowout? Well, in most cases, when people eat more on the weekends, they consume more carbohydrates and/or more sodium. When you consume carbs and salt, this attracts water weight, and water weight affects your scale weight. If we take carbohydrates, whenever you consume carbs, your body stores what's called glycogen. And for every 1 gram of glycogen, you attract 3 to 4 grams of water. So, following on from that example, if you were to go out on the weekend and you were to consume, say, 200 grams of carbs more than you normally consume, you would attract around 800 grams of water. 800 grams of water plus 200 grams of carbs is 1 kilo. And so even if you ate the normal amount of calories but you reduced your protein and increased your carbs, you would gain 1 kilo of water. Similarly, if you upped your salt intake significantly, you could attract around 1.5 liters of water, which would be around 2.2 pounds or 1 kilo. So that's the science. You can gain weight even if you do everything right. So what are some of the mistakes that people make? Number 1, people get their numbers wrong. Even though your weight temporarily may go up because of more carbs or more salt, if the numbers are right over the week, your weight can drop back down, because a temporary increase in weight doesn't mean an increase in fat. And matter of fact, I put this principle to the test during my Thanksgiving weekend. If you recall, I consumed around 10,000 calories over the course of the weekend, but leading up to that weekend, I was in a deficit. So I weighed myself before the weekend and I was 80 kilos. I then increased my carbohydrates and salt through cornbread and other nice treats, and my weight went up to 81.9, I believe, or 81.5, which is like 1.5 kilos or so. I waited 48 hours and my weight dropped back down to 80.3, which means that my numbers were correct. If the only reason your weight has gone up is because you ate more carbs and nothing else, then your weight should return to normal once your diet returns to normal, in about 48 to 72 hours. If your weight remains the same, i.e. it's still up 2 or 3 kilos after you've waited 72 hours, then the issue could be in your in versus out numbers. Mistake number 2, when we haven't seen the results that we want to see on the scale, people come up with ideas like, oh, muscle weighs more than fat, and that's why my scale weight is up. If you are supposed to be in a calorie deficit, i.e. losing body fat, eating less than your body burns, even if you gained muscle, that wouldn't affect your scale weight. If you gain muscle to the effect that it affects your scale weight, then it means that you are consuming more than your body needs, or you are in a surplus. So just to be clear, let's say you were in a deficit, you lost 1 pound of fat, gained 1 pound of muscle, that would still be net zero. Muscle does not weigh more than fat. And number 3 is not properly accounting for your weekend calories. You can't know what's in absolutely everything. You go out and eat, and you are pretty much just guessing. But if you want to make progress, what you need to do is roughly guesstimate to the nearest 500 how many calories you're going to go over your daily totals. And what you can do is cycle down in the week. So let's say you're trying to hit 2,000 calories per day, that's 14,000 calories per week. You might decide Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they are boring days. You might decide to go 1,500 calories on those days, and then on the weekend, you might decide to go 2,500. As long as your 7-day total is 14,000, you will get the same result as if you had 2,000 calories per day, 7 days in a row. So going back to my example of my Thanksgiving weekend, in the days leading up to the weekend, I did on average 15,000 steps, which was my target for the week. Now, if I wanted to eat even more, I could have raised that number to 17,500 or even 20,000. And that would have burned an extra 100 to 200 calories more per day, leaving me with an extra 1,400 if I wanted to spend that amount over the weekend. Looking at my nutrition, my goal calories are still set at my competition prep numbers, 2,400 calories per day. After I finish my show, I'm shooting for around 2,700 calories per day. And so what that meant is that Monday to Thursday, I had to go a little bit more aggressive on my calories. So I did 2.7, which is what I was aiming for on Monday, 2.2 on Tuesday and Wednesday, 2.4 on Friday, and that creates me some wiggle room for Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So what are some practical things that we can do to keep making progress after a weekend blowout? Number one, wait 48 to 72 hours after your weekend blowout. As I mentioned, even if you get your calories spot on and your steps spot on, if you had too many carbs, your weight could be up 1 to 2 kilos, depending on how big your body is. And if you had too much salt, your weight once again could be up at least a kilo. So wait a couple of days for your weight to return back to normal so that you get an accurate reading. Number two is make sure that you are calorie budgeting. Think about your steps as your salary and think about your nutrition as your outgoings. You are trying to create disposable or create savings. And so if you want to create that gap between what you burn and what you consume, you can bump up your steps. Roughly every 3,000 to 5,000 steps is about 1 to 300 calories, depending on how heavy you are. So again, you can create that gap. Or nutrition wise, try and peel back more than you normally would and save your calories for your weekend spend. As I mentioned before, if your 7-day average calories work, you will lose the same amount of body fat whether you eat the same every single day or cycle your calories up and down. Number three, do not waste your calories. If you decide like me to have 2 or 3 low days in the week to bank calories for the weekend, the quality of your food really needs to go up. Let's say you normally have a chocolate bar at 4 o'clock. If you're consuming 500 calories less, you are already going to be feeling more hungry. If you now start eating empty calories, which may normally be fine, then you are just going to find it harder to stick to lower calories. And number four, make sure your maintenance calories are correct. A lot of people assume the generic men need 2,500 calories to maintain their body weight and women need 2,000. While this applies to anyone and everyone, in my experience as a coach, these numbers don't apply to everyone. Women typically need somewhere between 1,400 and 2,300 calories to maintain their body weight. Men need somewhere between, let's say, 2,001 or 2,200 and like 2,800 on average. And you could be anywhere in between those or even higher and lower. It's important to make sure that your maintenance calories are accurately calculated to begin with. Otherwise, you may not be in a deficit at all. So don't just put your finger in the air and just guess how many calories you need. Try and use a calculator as a guide and then put it to the test. You know, if a calculator spits out 2,200, eat that way for 7 to 10 days and see what happens to your weight. We need to make sure that our numbers are objective. So that's everything. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like it if you did. Comment below, let me know the most amount of weight you've gained after a heavy weekend. Click the link in the description below for more details about coaching, or if you'd like to find out more about my free course to transform your mind and body. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to follow me on this journey, and I'll see you again soon.